at about 9 a.m. An autopsy was performed at Lord's Hospital down in Binghamton, and the cause of death was ruled to be that of blunt force trauma. The investigation is continuing, but we can share some further details with you. I'll hit a couple of those points, and then we'll be able to answer any questions that you might have about it. Brenda McKay was developed as a suspect during a neighborhood canvass of the area where Mr. Early was found. Ms. McKay is a former employee of Mr. Early's. Her employment ended in April of this year. Ms. McKay has no criminal record, but she was well known to the Corning Police Department. We believe that Ms. McKay acted alone in the commission of the murder, and District Attorney Baker would be able to explain the process that's going to happen from here. But really, if anybody had any questions or something, any of us, actually Sheriff Allard, if you had any words that you wanted to share.
I just wanted to say how exceedingly proud I am of all the agencies involved in that this murder came forward. The Corning City Police Department, the Steuben County Sheriff's Office, New York State Police all worked cooperatively, jointly, and very quickly to complete this investigation in a professional way that is really exemplary of how we work in Steuben County amongst our differing agencies, that when something a tragedy of this sort happens, we all come together, we all pitch in, and we work flawlessly together. And I think this investigation was a great example of that.
What did you do for? Oh, sorry.
It's okay. I would just echo the sheriff's sentiments. Obviously, each of these three departments here was very stressed the day this happened. There are a lot of events going on around the state police, the sheriff's department picking up some of those issues here, and the city of Corning obviously having a lot going on. The way these three agencies worked together was amazing. It was as though one agency were working. It's the way we're supposed to do cases, and I think the people of Steuben County should be proud and feel safer today because of what these guys did and how they did it together.
Lieutenant Bentley?
I'd just like to say echo everybody's comments. It's a true testament to the talented men and women in law enforcement that comprise City of Corning and Steuben County.
With that, is there any questions? Go ahead.
What did she do for him?
She did odd things around the house, help clean. She would write letters, simple things. He was a 100-year-old man. He didn't see very well, and he needed assistance here and there throughout the day. Yes, miss?
So would we be able to call that as one of his former caretakers? And if so, do we know the reason that she was terminated?
I wouldn't characterize her as a caretaker, just as somebody that would help him accomplish tasks, different tasks. She wasn't a certified caretaker. She didn't relate or help him with medical type conditions or anything like that.
Just at his house?
I'm sorry,
Just
what?
at his house?
Yes.
She didn't go to any dental properties?
Not that I'm aware
I think she was more of a clerical employee.
Okay, all right.
When was she terminated and why?
of. In April of this year. The reason, I believe, was because of the COVID. There was some concern. He had just turned 100 in March. There was concern over the COVID, and she was not a close family relative or anything like that, so they were minimizing who got to go see Mr. Early.
And then do you happen to know how long she did work for him before the termination?
Lieutenant, do you know?
May of 2019 till April of 2020.
So almost a year, about 11 months.
How did she get in?
That's still part of our investigation. Can't really comment as to that.
Okay, didn't know she had keep your phone, yeah.
There's a great amount of evidence that was collected. Not only did we have a crime scene where Mr. Early's murder occurred at his residence, we also had a separate crime scene, that being Miss McKay's residence around the corner on Walnut Street. So we had two separate residences. We had to do search warrants and forensically go through two homes. And there's a great amount of evidence that we recovered in that process, and we're still digesting that, and we'll ship things off to the lab for analysis as well. And we'll utilize the state police lab for that.
Where'd she get the hammer? She bring with her, or is it in his property?
I think that investigation is still ongoing. We have some beliefs and there's some evidence on that front, but again, that's an evidentiary issue that we're still developing.
Same thing, where did you find it? Was the hammer at her house? Or
Again, I don't think we're going to comment on that at this
Okay.
stage. Those are matters of evidence that probably shouldn't be talked about at this stage. So.
Yes, sir.
Can you say anything about her demeanor or her behavior when she was taken into custody?
She was generally cooperative as far as I'm.
Yeah,
I'm told.
I think she wasn't resistant. She cooperated, and she actually assisted in the investigation.
Is there any reason to believe that she might have been under the use of any substances or any of that sort of thing?
I spoke to a great many investigators that had contact with her, and that never came up that she was intoxicated or under the influence of any drugs of any sort.
And then to follow on to that, you did say that the Corning PD had been aware of her beforehand to kind of maybe talk on to if she had a criminal record or something that you were aware, why Corning PD was aware of her.
She had never had a criminal record, but over a 20-year period, there was 20 different encounters with her. She would have issue with neighbors regarding trespassing. She had issue where she would be loud. She would have verbal confrontations, but nothing that ever elevated to a criminal level where she was arrested.
Did she live in her house? Did she own it? Or did
No,
rent it off them?
She lived at 163 Walnut Street. She lived in an upstairs apartment at that
Was
residence.
it his? Was he own it?
No, he did not own
Yeah.
that property.
Can you say anything about McKay's background in terms of her career work history prior to that?
I think that's something we're still looking into. The investigation is ongoing. Law enforcement went very quickly to get the bad guy off the street, and to go from a report of an incident to an arrest within, I think, what was 5 hours is pretty amazing in a murder case. But the investigation will be many, many more hours, and we'll continue following some of those leads. So it's kind of early on to know. We don't have a complete picture of her yet.
Can you tell us anything about how his, how he was discovered and by whom?
It was a caretaker, somebody who does take care of him, found him
Okay.
in distress in the house.
Did they live, who else lived at that house with him?
I believe that he lived alone.
Oh, really? Okay.
Did McKay have a history of mental health problems?
I don't really know as yet, and that's something that, obviously, then we'll continue our investigation, what her background was, and we'll develop that as we go forward.
Does he have an attorney yet?
Yes, Christopher Tunney from the Public Defender's Office has been assigned to represent him. We conference a case in court with the judge today. He's reserved his right to a preliminary hearing for her, and we're turning over discovery at this time.
And, I'm sorry, one more. He was 100 years old, but he was still living in his own home. Obviously, there were, some people who came in to help him, but in general, he was in relatively good health.
Yes, he was in very good health. I knew him from prior occasion, just being a community member, me living in the community. I knew who he was and had interaction with him. He was always a man that was out walking. He was always staying fit. And, yeah, I was surprised to find out that he was actually 100. I thought he was a little bit younger. Yes.
And then, was it at all forced entry? Did she possibly have a key to the house? Do you happen to know how she got in?
That's something that we're still investigating.
Where was it in the house? Where, was he in bed when he was hit? Or was he in his room?
Again, that's something that we're sort of developing at this point. We have crime scene pictures to sort through, and lots of them, so.
Anything about upcoming court proceedings?
As of this stage, the next court date is July 28th in Corning City Court, but there could be something before then, or it may not. It may get moved to county before that happens, so we'll have to wait and see. But that was the judge's order today.
Who's the judge?
Judge McCarthy,
Cosby? Oh.
the case is still in Corning City Court. She was arraigned initially at the CAP Court at the Steuben County Public Safety Building, remained without bail, and made our first appearance. She was not present today, obviously, but we had our first comments on the case today from the judge.
In Florida.
Yes, downstairs, yeah.
And, sorry, she remains in Steuben County Jail. There's no reason to believe she'll be moving at any time.
She's being held out bail at this stage.
Yeah.
This court has no jurisdiction to set bail on a murder charge.
Yeah.
And then my last one is, there's no reason to believe so far that she was working with anybody else, that this was just only her.
I believe that she acted alone in the murder. We're still investigating. There's still a couple leads that we're following up on, but I'm very confident to say she was the lone actor in the murder of Mr. Early.
There's no indication of motive at this time?
That's something that we're still developing and Mr. Baker will probably speak to that in the coming months.
Well, and in reality, we don't have to prove motive. We'd like to find out what happened and why it happened. We have to prove for a murder charge that she intended to kill and killed. So motive is not something we have to prove. We'd like to find out why. We may or we may never know.
Could you also explain that second crime scene?
A crime scene search was done at her residence. Not that there was a crime committed there, but we did a search warrant, and we collected a great number of items of evidence there.
What led you to believe it was her?
A neighborhood canvass, so she had initial contact with police. They were doing the neighborhood canvass. They asked a couple questions, and she gave a couple of responses. At the same time, members of the family were talking with different investigators, and they actually mentioned her by name as somebody that had been recently let go from employment, so.
Did the family members mention that she was upset about being let go?
No, nothing of that was mentioned.
Any ever said you threatened them or anything like that?
No, nothing like that. But Mr. Early was 100 years old. He was a World War II veteran. Last Saturday was the anniversary of D-Day. Mr. Early didn't have action on the actual D-Day, but he was detailed and actually went as part of the D-Day operation. And here it is he's 100 years old on the anniversary of D-Day. He gets into another fight, and now he loses his life.
Can I, just one more thing, and this is something that I know is clear to all of you and probably to all of us, but it seems sometimes the public has difficulty understanding it. When the initial story was posted, some people responded negatively to the second-degree murder charge, thinking it should be a higher level charge. Can you just talk about how that works?
In New York State, second-degree murder is an intentional murder. That's premeditated murder in most states. It fits most cases where it's an intentional murder. To get to first-degree murder, you need to have certain aggravators, which are not present in this case. It has to be a torture killing, a multiple homicide of a police officer, in the line of duty, things of that nature, which do not apply in this case. So none of the aggravators were present to make this a murder one case. This is the highest level charge that fits with sort of your standard intentional murder case.
And the nature, the characteristics of the victim don't necessarily, someone being particularly elderly wouldn't be something that would.
No, obviously it factors into the heinous nature of the crime, but it does not factor into the aggravating factors for a move from murder in the second degree to murder in the first degree.
Okay, thank you.
It's the max penalty.
The maximum penalty is 25 years to life.
Did McKay have any financial gain from this act?
I don't believe so, but that would be part of the investigation, but it doesn't appear that finances were a motive. Yes.
In respect to the victim, for those maybe curious, when they will be able to pay respects, or just when they'll be able to kind of, not necessarily when the body will be able to be laid to rest, but when people will be able to pay respects. As you said, he was a veteran, and this did happen on D-Day, so some may be more wanting to be able to pay their respects for him, as they weren't able to that day.
I don't know when that's going to happen, but I would be interested to attend that as well. Okay. And I'm not sure if it was this is Chris Wilkinson, he's with the state police. Did they mention, is it an obituary, is there,
I'm not sure about that.
Nothing has
I
been
know
mentioned of that.
I spoke with the daughter, and she mentioned maybe in August they were gonna have some sort of a ceremony or something for him, some for the members.
Is there anything holding that up in terms of the medical examiner in that process?
No, the autopsy is complete, so the body will be released to family probably today,
Okay, so it's up to
or
them.
may have been yesterday, actually. It's up to them, yeah.
Anybody else? All right, well, thank you very much.
Thanks for coming.